Hello, hi, it's Lori. Thanks for joining us. We're in episode 7 of Free Our Flat Earth, and I have two guests with me today. We're excited to have both Jason Campbell and a new guest, Paul Sandu, and welcome both you guys.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're just going to get together like week after week after week, and we're going to talk. I've got a frog in my throat. Hold on. And talk about more flat Earth, other topics, other ideas, makes, maps, models, the New World Order, conspiracies in general. It usually runs the gauntlet. So, so first I want to say hello to Jason and have him sort of quickly say hi and what tell anything he's been working on or whatever, and then we'll go to Paul.
Okay. Well, nothing really a whole lot to say. I did want to pick up kind of with last week and throw out a few more names. My perspective, Rory Cooper, Cesar, and of course Mark Sargent, Morgile, Rob Skiba, Jeranism. They all kind of led to a path for me. And then we got into the Hangouts, which is where I picked you up and have followed you ever since. And not really a whole lot of research this week. I actually had a couple doctor's appointments and spent most of my time down this week. But I think I'll probably, like I said, just kind of hang back during this interview and listen to Mr. Sandu and listen to him present his theories and ideas. We'll go from there.
Cool. Glad you're with us. And so, Paul, welcome. And jump in and start. I guess usually we just sort of do what Jason did, introduce how you got here and where you came from and what you're working on, if anything.
All right. Thank you, first of all, for having me on your program. I guess we connected a few weeks back, and you had invited me to come on, and I appreciate that. And finally, after some journeys that I had to go on, I'm back, and so we got a chance to get together. I am based in Toronto, Canada. Although I'm originally from India, I was born and raised there. Spent the early parts of my early years of my life down there, and I actually just came back from a visit down there. And I have been, I would consider myself above all to be a Bible scholar. That, if anything, would be my expertise, although I don't consider myself to be an expert in anything. But then also I've been studying conspiracies for close to about 15 years now anyhow. I got introduced them towards the end of the last century, and since then, come across just about every topic. And it is the topic of the flat Earth, which I finally encountered rather late, I might say, just about maybe 6, 8, sometime last fall. I was early last fall, I think. And it is a topic that intrigued me right off the start. And I must say that it didn't take me, like some people have a very hard time. For me, it wasn't a hard time because I'm always ready to believe, or ready to examine anything that comes my way, because I have learned enough that nothing is as it seems, because we truly do live in a matrix. So this research that I've been doing into this topic, I have come to the realization that it is indeed a very deep rabbit hole, but the best way to tackle it is to become a globe debunker, like Jason, I believe, is. And Jason, you can just call me Paul. You don't have to call me Mr. Sandu. But yeah, so that's what I've been researching, things like what the globe model really is, because I never really thought about it much, just accepted as fact. And now the more I study that, the more I come to realize like what a work of fiction it really is. Hello.
I think we lost your voice there for a second.
That's okay. I'm still here, but yeah, please.
Okay, you're back. All right.
Yeah, right.
It just cut out for a second.
Yes,
okay.
It did.
So thank you, and I'm very glad for you to be here. It's our first opportunity to talk, and I wanted to hear that. I wanted to learn more about, where you come from and how you got here. So, having said that, one of the questions that I would like to ask you would be, we've all done our own individual research into flat Earth and what it means, and after sort of running through all of those rabbit holes, something usually attaches to us as far as what we believe we live on if we don't live on a spinning globe. And so I think each individual has a mental picture and sort of a heart attachment to one particular aspect or model of what flat Earth means to them. And so if you were to describe, and this is purely your own theory or your own philosophy, and nobody's holding anybody to anything here, and you're certainly welcome to change your opinion whenever. So what does flat Earth mean to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like? I noticed you said the word matrix, and I use that word often myself. So if you were to paint a picture for the listeners of what you believe you've come to arrive at what flat Earth means, what is it?
Well, as the name suggests, flat Earth, I would say first and foremost, it is a flat plane, that it is not a sphere. Okay, from wherever in the Earth you are, let's say Australia up to North America, any place, any direction that you would go, it is going to be a flat, level plane, with the caveat that, of course, we have elevation changes because of mountains, etc. And that's what I would say it is. Like it's a flat. The land itself is a flat surface, which rests on a pool of water. The water, of course, is the oceans that surround us, and ultimately, I would say that all the oceans, they all connect together. So it's like a one giant pool in which sits a land. Like if you go to a swimming pool, for example, in a hotel or something, they have some toys. There may be some little beach balls and some tubes, etc., that are floaties that are in that pool. And that's, you could say, constitutes our land mass, and the rest is water that is sitting on. That's the way I would picture it. And above it, if you want to go address that as well, and I'm speaking from a biblical perspective, it talks about a firmament, which seems to be some sort of hardened roof-like structure. Okay, and a lot of people have, the most common accepted, commonly taught model is that it's some sort of a dome. Like, Mark Sargent, for example, says it's like a cake plate, which is a dome on top of a cake. And but I don't believe that's what the Bible teaches, that it talks about the tabernacle. In Psalm 19, for example, is very specific that particularly for the sun, the Lord has set a tabernacle, which is the domain in which it moves. So tabernacle, based on a tent, tabernacle is a tent. So there was a tent of worship that was built by Moses in the wilderness, and that was a rectangular structure. It wasn't square, it was rectangular. So that's how I picture that the covering that sits on the earth, in which resides all the heavenly bodies that we can see, the sun, moon, and the stars. And that is what it is. Above the rectangle, there's the roof, of course, is also water, because the Bible talks about water that are above the heavens. So that's the model that I picture when I talk flat Earth.
Okay, I love that model, and I've done quite a bit of research into rectangular flat Earth and square flat Earth myself. On previous shows, Lawrence Wright and I have investigated maps and models and tried to take a somewhat, empirical approach, meaning we've taken as much evidence as we could find, like distances between airports, longitudes and latitudes, time and date, length of days, north and south hemisphere, and came to the conclusion that at least it appeared that the land masses fit within this diamond shape. Could be that diamond shape could be converted to a circle, could be converted to a rectangle, anything depending on the angle in which it's stretched. So that was as far as I was interested in going to determine what a possible map looked like, only because I was unable to buy into the classic AE circular disk model with the sun going around in a circle and the moon going around in a circle and the Truman Show cake plate over the top of it. I just didn't buy into that. That it didn't seem like what evidence I observed in the world figured out to be. So I've done, and a lot of us have looked into free energies make and model of how the rectangular, they call it square flat earth, but his model is rectangular. The question I have then, if you've come to the conclusion that what the Bible depicts, and I also agree with the tabernacle shape, that if it's a rectangle, how does the sun and moon move or work within, I guess I should clarify, the sun and moon are inside this rectangle, in your opinion, correct? Okay, inside
correct.
The firmament.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so how does the sun and moon work? Do they, I'm sure you've done some research into the Enochian gates and that kind of idea as far as portals and gates where the sun moves across east to west, day after day, year after year, century after century. So how do you explain that in your model?
Okay, first of all, I would not consider myself to be any sort of expert in this subject because, as I said, this is relatively new for me. So I can't speak with any amount of certainty as to how the sun and the moon or the other heavenly bodies function within the structure. Okay. I would speculate that because the Earth sits on water, we do not really know the extent of the waters themselves that would constitute the rectangle. Within that rectangle, however, the Earth, I believe, or the landmass, at least the ones that we are aware of, I don't think they occupy like unlimited area. Okay, they are relatively close together, as I'm sure you have discovered with your calculations. So all the land masses that we know, whether they are like south of here or north of here, we are in the northern, what we call the hemisphere, although I don't like that word anymore, in the northern part of the
hemisphere.
Earth. So on that area, if it is only like the land mass that needs a lighting system, because we are taught that God made two great lights, okay, the sun to rule the day and of course the moon to rule the night. So if those are the land masses that need to be lit, then if the sun, for example, only lights, say, half of the land mass at any given time, so as it moves along in a circular path across the entire land mass, only half of the land mass will be lit at any given time. So that's how I visualize it. Now, that the sun moves, there is no doubt about that in my mind, okay? Like this idea that the Earth is moving, that's another thing I forgot to mention when I was speaking about the model, that the Earth is stationary. It is not moving in any way, shape, or form. It is stationary, and it is the luminaries that are above the Earth that actually move. That's how I visualize it. Now, I understand that these paths that we can plot the path of the sun and the moon, they're not exactly, if I'm right, they are not entirely circular, or they vary in from time of year to from one time of the year to another. And how and why that happens, well, as far as I'm concerned, there is, if we do have a creator who is in charge of it and is responsible for the mechanics of how it works, then that would be just like a programming factor. Like, we can program any kind of instrument these days to do a move in a certain direction, to do certain things. So that could be how it's been programmed to work. But that's my guesswork, I would say, but I can't speak with a great deal of authority on it that this is exactly how it's happening.
As far then, okay, having said that, if how much difference does it make to you how it actually works? Are any of these things a deal breaker for you? If you found out that in your mind you sort of thought it worked like this, but then later on you found out it worked like that, would it negate anything as far as what you believe the earth to be from a biblical description standpoint? Because I also, no matter what I come up with in my head as far as how or what it is or how it works, I need to clarify it within Scripture just to be sure that I'm not that far off base from what Scripture says, because I do believe everything is pretty clearly explained, but only to the degree that we can wrap our minds around it.
Well, first of all, in any journey, you have to, like I said, journey of 1,000 miles, begins with a single step. So whatever, you got to start stepping out there and start seeking, and eventually the answers will come. Now, because I personally know that I don't have all the answers, so I'm open to, information. Mm-hmm. So if something comes around that's offering me something that's the complete opposite of how it's functioning, I would say yes, okay, I'd be willing to look at that, and I will, if that's the correct explanation, then that's fine. If somebody actually came around and even proved to me, okay, that it is, here it is, 100% proof that it's a spinning globe or whatever, then if the evidence was supported, then you have to go with it. So I'm not being dogmatic about it. I'm pretty sure that it is what we believe, a flat stationary plane. And there is some other things that are a little bit interesting as well, as far as the movement of the sun and the earth is concerned. Now, if you do look at this from a biblical perspective, one of the things that the Bible does say, which I've never really heard anybody speak about, is that he has hung the earth upon nothing. Now, this is a concept that people would have a real hard time grasping, in that the way the structure works is, there are three layers to this, let's say. The top layer would be what the Bible calls the heaven, as with the definite article, the in front of it. Okay, so that's the abode of God. That's, you could say, the administrative center of all creation, from where everything is directed and controlled. In between, there's another layer which would be above the pool of water that we spoke about, which is called the second heaven, because we are told in the Bible about the third heaven. So it stands to reason that there's a second heaven, and it will be that area there. Okay, and then below that, of course, we have our atmosphere and the heavens that we see with our eyes, and below that, the earth. Below the earth is nothing. Okay, and that's a concept which people may have a difficult time understanding, but there is no way for us to go below the base of this pool of water. And when you take that into consideration, then the model that develops as far as the movement of the sun, etc., is concerned, I believe that the sun is always above the surface of the earth. At no point does it, go away from being above some portion of the landmass. And that applies to the moon as well.
Okay. Jason, what do you think about that? Does that fit with anything not that it matters, because, we're not here to critique each other, obviously. We're just here to kind of open dialogue, so.
Yeah, I look at that as being very similar to the ideas that I've come through from reading the Bible and Enoch. Enoch says it quite a bit differently with 10 heavens, and each of the 10 heavens has its own purpose and all that. But for the most part, I would agree with Paul and say that, it's flat. We have a firmament separating us. We have a heaven above us, and we have the heaven of God above that. I would agree with that so far. I would say that as far as the circular path of the sun and the moon, that again is in Enoch. So I would agree with him so far. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's on the same path that I was, 9 months ago.
All right. Well, that's good. I mean, that's interesting that the path seems to be pretty wide down through there. So Paul, my next question then automatically.
Can I add something before we go to the next question, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what I would add is, what I would like to add is to this model that we are sort of developing here as we talk, the model that I visualize. The Bible talks about the ends of the earth and the ends of the heavens. So it assigns a finiteness to creation. Now, of course, for our, we are very limited in our perception and our abilities to travel, etc. So from our perspective, it may as well be infinite, but not certainly from God's perspective. So when we take that into account, then it's like you can imagine like a box-like structure, which has boundaries. So once we are within those boundaries, then when it talks about there being nothing underneath, for example, or even on the sides, I'm sure, then that makes sense. That if it is finite, then there have to be limits somewhere. And what's beyond the limits? There's nothing.
Okay.
Does that? I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's how I would.
Yeah, I've heard people. I've even speculated myself that we have no idea what's outside the boundary. If you're in a box and you're a little ant and you're in a refrigerator box, that box is going to be pretty big. So
yes.
And so at that point, it really doesn't matter what's out there because you're never going to get there. That little ant could crawl and crawl and crawl forever and ever and never get to the end of the box. So, but I've also in my mind, I have thoughts that it's possible that there's that we live in a honeycomb and that we're in this particular box, this one cell of the honeycomb, and that not just only above us, there's part of these realms of existence, for however you want to use that word, are on the outside of the box. So perhaps there's no way to ever understand, what else is out there other than emptiness. So I can easily wrap my mind around there's nothing. I mean, nothing's kind of hard to understand, but at the same time, nothing means nothing. Okay, we're used to thinking nothing is out there as far as space. That if we got out in space and we started floating around in the nothing, that would be a very long journey. So, having said that, I'm guilty as charged of having a mind that jumps around from place to place, and so I pity the
No, that's fine. I can comment on what you're saying.
So I have to try to keep up with, wow, where'd she go from there to there, and how'd she get there, and so on. So, but
actually, I have some understanding of what, or I would agree with you what you're trying to say about the honeycomb. If you would like me to comment on that, I can.
Sure.
Okay, I can again add that. Again, from a biblical understanding, the Bible doesn't teach that intelligent life, like you said, existence or intelligent life exists only on the surface of the earth. Okay, there are at least two other places within this area in which we live. Okay, under the firmament, you could say, and one would be inside the earth. Now we don't know how deep the land goes. For all we know, it could be like a building with many, many stories. Okay, so there is definitely something inside There's no doubt about that. Especially in the book of Revelation, we can read about these locusts, etc., that come out of the earth, these beasts that rise out of the sea. And that gets me to the other place, which is the seas. In these seas, there exist, some might say aliens, or those type of life forms. We might call them devils, etc., or maybe even some sort of corporeal life similar to humans, like what we are on the surface. Okay, that exists right here. So we don't have to look beyond the boundaries of the firmament or this box. There's so much right here that that is not accessible to us. That doesn't mean that they're not here. They, meaning whoever they are, they're not here, because throughout history and in the Bible and just any culture, whatever, there has been plenty of documented evidence that other worldly beings have had interaction with us people on the surface. And there's enough documented evidence that a lot of these came out of the earth. And there's nothing to say that they're still not there, and they're still not interacting with the people here, influencing the life on the surface. So it is not necessary for us to look up there in the heavens. We might be better for us to look down.
Well, and
the honeycombs could be right here inside right. Our,
Okay.
Right.
All right, and you know what? That's even a better explanation for some of the thoughts that I've had, as far as I use the word honeycomb not just because of the cells around any one cell, but also because perhaps the walls between the cells are permeable by certain entities and not others.
Right.
In other words, me in my meat suit can't go through that wall because my meat suit can't penetrate the wall. But another entity who has no meat suit, who is just spiritual energy, for example, or electrical energy, or whatever, sky's the limit.
It could be some technology, some form of technology.
Right. Or some form of technology. They got their own little CERN beam gate weapon that they can penetrate through the wall, and poof, they're gone. And we're like, wait a minute, I thought I saw a whatever, and now I don't see it anymore. So that easily, in my opinion, could explain all kinds of supernatural phenomenon that has occurred over history, from the classic UFO, first it's here, now it's gone, to the gods came down from Mount Olympus and interacted with the humans. There's a fine line between thousands of years later, what sounds like a myth because it sounds too phenomenal to be true, to it actually really happened that way, and it isn't mythical at all. I mean, it really was like that. So I keep my mind open to those aspects, and perhaps within the flat Earth mythology, which there is some, people talk about, well, the reason why we can't go to Antarctica is because they won't let us go there. And they're protecting the wall, and that is what Admiral Byrd found something. He found the wall, he found the boundary, or he found Hollow Earth, and so on. So there easily exists a possibility that there are other entities here, and they've been here all along, been here since the beginning, maybe even before us, before our part of the creation, and they've been interacting with us all along. And that goes with the whole fallen angel thing and the Nephilim and all of that. That's another one of those areas you could just go off into. There's a reason why there's just a little bitty part of that in the Bible. It's because, it's
actually more than it's more than just a little part, but please continue. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Well, I mean, when people only discover the one little sentence or so in Genesis
Right.
that says the Nephilim were here before in the days of Noah, and then after, and then that doesn't say a whole lot more about it until you get to other sections. So if you only pull out that one part, then and that's all you know, then that could obviously lead you to have a pretty vivid imagination of, take that away.
Oh, yes.
So okay, so now changing gears a little bit, and we can come back, no problem with that, but I want to hear, before we get a whole lot further, why you believe this gigantic lie would have been created, expounded upon, and perpetuated for thousands of years. The spinning ball is what I'm talking about. Why? Why go to all that trouble? Why go to all that effort to recreate God's creation?
Well, in the Bible, Satan, the devil, is called the god of this world. Okay? And a lot of people misinterpret that as meaning God of the earth. That's not what the Bible is saying. The word world in there essentially means the system that governs life on this earth. And the system basically can be summarized as the system of commerce, of buying and selling, okay, trading, merchandising. And what people are not really familiar with is that the very first sin recorded in the Bible is exactly that of merchandising, because God made his creation and gave it freely to all his creatures. So the person that actually first started this process of banking, buying, selling, trading, merchandising was this angel identified as the anointed cherub in Ezekiel 28. So above all, Satan is a merchant banker, and he has created this whole matrix world in which people, the whole thing about the purpose of their life becomes basically making a living instead of actually living. So that is to keep them entangled in this rat race, keep them spinning around the wheel like hamsters, so they do not sit back and actually ponder their existence and consider that there may be a higher or greater purpose. He has literally created this matrix world, and this matrix world is not limited just to one field, like economics or politics or religion. It includes everything: geology, geography, astronomy, physics, sciences. The whole thing is corrupt. So it's not surprising that he came up with this spinning earth model, because one of the things that happens is when we do understand the flat earth and the structure, and we see the movements of the sun and the earth, etc., which confirms things that are written in the Bible, then it points very, very strongly towards a creator. Now, personally, I think that even if you were a scientist, the very first conclusion by observing all that we see with our eyes would be that there had to be a designer and a creator. Okay, who that is, it may be a mystery, but there has to be one. So, as you know, Lori, like in modern science, or even going back hundreds of thousands of years, the main purpose of science is to formulate models that would remove the creator from his creation. It is to hide the creator. I think that is the fundamental purpose of this whole globe earth fiction that has now become so entrenched in our world.
Well said. I mean, I agree, because when you try to extract any one thing from the whole picture, in other words, if you said, well, money is a lie, but everything else is true, or the globe earth is a lie, but everything else is true, it doesn't work, because
right.
If the globe is a lie, then so is the Big Bang, and evolution and all the education that stands on the shoulders of those two things is an incredible part of what our belief system is. And so when you start to disassemble the puzzle and take pieces out, you don't have a picture anymore. You don't have any clear idea. You just have these big blank voided places. Humans have an innate need to fill in any void, even with regards to the way we see. And you look out over a vista of miles and miles and miles, and at some point, you have the classic horizon line, and in your heart, in your head, that there's more beyond that. That isn't the end of the earth. Nothing falls off there. The closer you get to it, the line moves forward. So you can't ever get to the line, just like you can't ever get to the end of the rainbow, so to speak. Okay. And so I agree that the fundamental reason for all of the lies is to not only hide God and disguise God and God's work in it, creation of it and work within it, but to change the focus of the importance of the creation to all these other aspects: science, religion, economics, jobs, everything. So I'm glad to hear you express the why the same way that I think the why is, because people would say, well, it's not that simple. Okay. But now, so you take that why and you say, okay, it was to hide God and to belittle God's creation. Now the person will say to you, well, then how has this Satan been able to get everybody for years and years to be complicit in this lie? Are they all in on it? How many times have you heard that?
Oh, I've heard that very frequently, and it's a legitimate question, right? So, I mean, I don't belittle that question, and I think everybody should ask that question. One thing I do want to add in regards to the why, without going into too much detail, is that man has a special place in God's creation. Okay. Essentially, man is that creature out of all God's creatures, including the angels, who was chosen to be transformed from, let's say, mankind into Godkind. For God to make one of his own kind would be through the agency of man. That's what makes man special. And therefore, his habitation he was given, which is the earth, is also a special and unique place. It is not like one of billions or trillions of planets or balls of dirt floating around out there. It is the only one of its kind in all of creation. And I might add that I believe it is the largest one of them all. Okay, the sun and the moon, and especially the stars, they do not even begin to compare in size to the size of this earth. So that's, having said that, that would be another reason why, that the purpose is so great that the challenge in actually is like any great task, any great achievement requires a great, okay? Therefore, for us,
can you repeat that last sentence? Because there was a bleep of some kind that went over it, at least from my end.
Sure, said any great achievement or any great task, anything with a great reward usually requires great effort. It requires a great test. It's presented with a great challenge. Okay, So therefore, this promise or this gift that has been put before us also requires effort and labor and basically for us to give it all in order to understand its value. Okay, because it is so great. If we have really been promised that we will go from flesh and blood mortals to immortal, eternal beings that are the same species as God, and that is exactly what the Bible has promised us. If God made children for himself, if God made a bride for himself, obviously they're going to be the same kind as he is. The word kind is very important in the Bible, but I won't go down that right now, okay? So therefore, this is something which is not, to understand the value of that, go through a great struggle. Okay, it's like mining for gold or something. If gold was just littered on the streets, it would have no value. But because we have to mine it, we have to dig for it, we have to search hard for it, dig it out, refine it. It takes a lot of effort and labor. It costs us something, therefore we value it. And this is the same thing with the life that we have been promised. We have to understand its value. And this is why these things happen. This is why there's a Satan. This is why the lies are there. Because it is once we have understood the lies that the truth becomes valuable to us. If there were no lies, truth would have no value. And that's been proven by history. The angels, for example, that stood in the presence of God, they knew his power, they were themselves powerful, but they had no darkness, no lies, nothing that could give them a reference point to understand the value of what they had. They threw it away. Same thing with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. They had no reference point. They didn't understand what they had been given was so valuable. So they chucked it away without even like a second thought, it seems. This is the reason why these things have happened. And this is what makes man special, and this is what makes the earth special, and this is why this whole globe earth model has been brought. It's just one lie. I believe it's the biggest one of them all. Okay, we all know, you've been following conspiracies and JFK, Pearl Harbor, this, that, and 9/11 even. It pales in comparison to this one. This is the granddaddy of them all. People have said to me, oh, you were taken away from the 9/11 truth movement or something like that, talking about the flat earth. But they don't get it, that this is the biggest one. Would you agree with me that I've never come across anything bigger?
100%, I agree with you, and it is why it has compelled me for the last year to spend more energy and effort on trying to get other people to see that and to expose it to as many people as I can, in such a way that not to spoon feed them and tell them, this is what flat earth is, this is what it means, this is what you should think about it, this is what you should do, and this and that, and look at this and that. I haven't done any of that. I haven't done one bit of that. What I have done is I've said, it's looking to me like this is the biggest lie that anybody could ever have gotten away with and continue to get away with. And if it were up to me, I would compel you to look into it and see if you see the same thing I see. And if in fact this lie is true, little oxymoron, then it changes everything about who we are, how we live, what we believe, what is important to life, the universe, and everything. Where we go from here, what happens next, all of it, everything. And I have no other way to react to it than first I was in awe that I could have missed this lie. But I'm a human. I was indoctrinated. I was propagandized too. I was brainwashed through school, the whole thing. All of us were. I questioned all kinds of aspects of the information that I was given, information couched as education. Now learning that the word indoctrination absolutely fits. And so as I have gotten to the point of seeing not only the reason for the lie, because there can only be one entity that had the capacity to create this lie, perpetuate this lie, infiltrate it into all aspects of society and life in general, and on top of that, to manipulate people throughout history to add to the lie, reverse engineer theories to, like, wow, they just woke up one day and realized gravity was necessary to this thing. I 100% believe that was got Satan's fingerprints all over it. I mean, those kinds of theories were needed to support the lie. So, I just want to go around and shake everybody, or do one of those get the bullhorn and go out at the mall and go, research flat earth, you idiots. We're living in a lie here, I mean, I'm surprised I haven't been locked up by now. So anyway, okay, so that's where we are. And for somebody to say to you, they've said the same thing to me, there's so many more important things like 9/11 truth or Sandy Hook or exposing the Federal Reserve, and I go, yeah, darn tootin', those are all really important things. And I've been working on them for a quarter of my life trying to expose them. And I got nowhere. I mean, I woke up a few hands full of people and they also got it. But I think that there's a little wake-up angel that goes around and systematically flips your switch on. I've said this 1,000 times and I'll say it 1,000 more. It's God. It's God saying, wake up now, okay, you human and you human.
Right.
Because you could scream your head off for a week at somebody about all of these things, and they're just going do-de-do-de-do, whatever, or get mad and go, stop talking about it. I'm sick of hearing about it. Do you have anything else? Won't you go take a chill pill? But then suddenly, something in the system, and this is where I'm at now, something in the system that we live in wakes them up, whether it's a foreclosure, whether it's an illness, whether it's a death, they lose their job, something jerks them into becoming a part of the system and they can't get out of it. And they realize how the system is ingrained in everything we do and everything we see. And it very much is like the Matrix. In the movie where they unplugged Neo and dumped him out of this little pod cell he was in, and sorry to let you know this, but this is actually the way the world is. It's like, yeah, I liked it better the other way. This sucks. And so, but you can't go back. Your cell is not there for you anymore. So, what is your, I guess you would call it your playbook for people who are, just now getting started and doing some research or looking into flat earth, who happen to fall into the net of this show today or something? What's your playbook to tell them to go by? What should they do?
Well, personally, what I've been doing lately, like I said, was to study the model, because of what is taught as the accepted model of the globe, of the solar system, of our ever-expanding universe. And when we start to examine those things with a critical eye, then we find out that really there are no answers in those things. And most of those things, like the Big Bang, for example, I don't even believe they qualify to be called theories. They're not even like a real good hypotheses. So to pass this off as science, and the way these guys talk is, yeah, this has all been proven, it's been established, trust us, we are from Cornell, I'm on national TV, we are from the government. Well, no.
Don't
No,
forget peer
that
reviewed.
exactly. Peer reviews, I have published so many papers, all that stuff. So those are the very people actually that one should be very wary of. For example, I'll give you a little example of what I'm studying right now, which is I've been doing a little study on the Big Bang. Actually more to do with origins, okay? Because I think as human beings, we need to really understand our existence, okay? Who we are, where did we come from, what is the purpose, where are we gonna go, like all these questions. But like I said, because we are kept so busy right from birth that the purpose of your life is to join the rat race and make a living and buy lots of things, basically, that's the purpose of your life. And maybe get some silly entertainment along the way, sports and whatever, rock concerts, this, that people get indoctrinated into it from a very early time. And as they do into the globe model, for example, this is your world that you live on. So when you start examining origins, there's these two models that we have. One is the Big Bang, which is the commonly accepted one. And then, of course, we have that there's a creator. In the Big Bang, the premise is, like, this is something physicists and astronomers and scientists in general, they arrived at a consensus finally in the mid-20th century that the universe does have a beginning. And most people may find that strange that scientists would have to dispute this fact that the universe have a beginning or not, but they did. They disputed that for centuries, and finally they kind of sort of somewhat consensus, okay, it has a beginning. Now, if something has a beginning, then the logical question is, what was it that existed in the beginning from which the beginning got going? So in the Big Bang model, what they say is, and Mr. Einstein, or Dr. Einstein, I should say, he was one of the guys that also proposed this. What they had was what they now call the singularity. It's a very fancy word, but what it basically means is that it was something with zero volume but infinite density. Okay. Now, just trying to understand what that really means, it's my head is starting to, I have to take like a bottle of Advil here just to wrap my head around it. What does that mean? That something is zero volume but infinite density, okay? I don't know what it means. But anyhow, that's what they say existed in the beginning from which everything has come, including ourselves. Fair enough. But at the same time, they say there is no God. Now, if you're a rational person and you were to choose between two models, would you choose this as your originator, that is something with zero volume and infinite density, with no intelligence, no understanding, no planning, no design, from which everything came? Or would you be honest and say, okay, the more rational explanation is that there was somebody who has the understanding, the power, the energy required to create all this, to design it, and to bring it into existence. Now, at this moment in time, I can't understand, how exactly it was done, or how exactly this person or whoever it is, God, might have existed, or where he might have come from. Those are questions to which I don't have the answer. But between those two, the model that there is a creator, I think, is a much more reasonable, it's a much more reasoned, much more sensible, much more logical, and much more scientific one. Yet science will deny that, but they'll believe in these stories that in the beginning there was something with zero volume and infinite density. Now, when you start to think about the implications of something like with infinite density, and then that it started expanding, and all the power and the energy that would be required to take something and expand that has infinite density, that means you would need something with far greater infinite power to make that happen. And when you start to understand the implications of that, then if that much power was applied in the beginning, wherever it came from, there is no possible way that anything could have stayed coalesced. If this thing is trying to take it to zero density, then that's what we should have. We shouldn't have planets and everything else, because the force that is pulling it apart would have to be that much greater than the force that held it together. These are just common sense things. We don't need degrees from MIT or Harvard or something to come to these conclusions. God has given us a mind, you know. We have the logos of God, which is the Word of God, and logos means logic, it means reason, it means understanding, it means being able to analyze things and to come to conclusions. And so if we just use our minds, all these things can be torn apart. And that's what I would suggest. People go and study the globe. Don't worry about the flat Earth. Study the globe if that is possible. The other thing, for example, they give you the explanation that, okay, the Earth spins in an elliptical orbit around the sun. It's tilted at like 23.4 degrees, and therefore we have seasons. Now, in the winter, in the northern part of the Earth, we just happen to be 3 million miles closer to the sun, but it's wintertime. So when you ask them, okay, so if you're closer to the sun, why is it not warmer? Or don't worry about that, just leave that aside. That's just the way it is. It's because it's tilted. And then, you wonder, is that real science? They're taking this huge variable and they're ignoring it completely. And I'm to believe that this is science, yet it's being taught in like the most prestigious institutions in our world. Is this all garbage? Is this all lies? I would have to conclude that it is. So once you start studying the globe, you are going to come to a conclusion that it is the whole solar system. Let's not even go into the solar system with the sun running away and, all the thing. It's like so... Yeah, let's get a good laugh at it, Lori. Like, what else can you do? It is ludicrous.
Well, here's what's really sad, Paul, and that is, okay, so you're this little impressionable child. Okay, for the first 5 years of your life, you're told one day you're going to go to school. One day, oh, how exciting that's going to be. One day you're going to be big enough, you keep growing, you're going to be big enough to go to school. And so you're like, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to go to school and I'm going to be smart. Okay, and then amazingly, the first stuff you learn is this extremely intricate concept of the Big Bang and the evolution and the pond puppies and the mud and then the dinosaurs and they make it very exciting. Ooh, got to throw dinosaurs in there to and the balls painted all the colors hanging from the ceiling of the classroom, spinning in the wind of the fan, and you're like, woo! And before you know it, you're manipulated, okay, into look how smart I'm getting, all right? Look at all this stuff I know now. And the more, I remember, I couldn't do it now if you made me, but I remember there was some, like Roy G. Biv is the letters you learn about the colors, red, orange, yellow, green, okay? And there was one of those for the order of the planets. Okay. And you had to memorize. That was more important than memorizing the presidents or whatever. So once you get past that, and then you get to the really boring stuff like math and English and spelling, history, then you've got all that stuff stored, and then you actually never go back and revisit it. Unless you are one of those people who loved that so much that you continued your education about that one particular field.
Right.
Astrotheology, astrophysics, astro stuff, okay? I never went there, so I never took a second look. I never even owned my own globe. I never had one at home, only had the one at school. There was one at the library, I remember that. And one of my neighbors had a really big one that, you know, opened up and there was a bar inside of it, okay? That was as much as I cared about the globe after that, or any of the workings of it, okay?
Right.
And now, 40 years goes by, and now I'm having to relearn all this stuff to debunk it, okay? So
Sure.
now I'm learning all over again all the stuff that I'm like opening file drawers in my brain of rusty, dusty old documents of orders of planets and how fast. I forgot even how far away the moon was, or sun was supposed to be, or the moon, or any of it. I didn't care. On with it. Like you said, making a living, buying stuff, living life. So as we unlearn, relearn, and then unlearn all the garbage, now when we listen to it, we go, really? Wow, that is so bogus. That is such a mumbo jumbo list of the stupid words made up that don't actually mean anything to life, the universe, or anything. And yet, those who have sheeple skins, I call them, they're a little mortarboard, they're a little sheeple skin that says, you have now graduated your indoctrination program, and here's something to be proud of.
Right.
So that's why when people say, are you kidding me with the flat earth thing? Do you know that? And then they start to regurgitate one of those things, one
Right.
of those evolution things, like you never heard it before in your whole life. And you just want to go, really? You think I don't know any of that? I'm like, I was there before, and now I'm not there anymore, okay? But you still are. Can we get that part clear? That you're still stuck there, not even willing to come across the line in the sand to see where I'm coming from with my kooky, crazy stuff? So, Big Bang. I mean, are you laughing when you're reading it? Hopefully.
I'm getting a good kick out of it. I am. It's just amazing. By the way, I just want to say, like, when you're talking things that we have to unlearn. See, everything happens for a purpose and a reason. Now, the things that, just look at it this way, that this is a good way of learning the value of lies. If you've never been taught this garbage or this lies, would the stuff that you are understanding now have the same value? Or would you even have considered it if any value at all? You understand? It is because we were indoctrinated into lies that the truth now has such great value for us. This is serving a greater purpose. So, like, now I don't want people to be too discouraged that, oh yeah, the world is just lies, or Satan is somehow, omnipotent or whatever. They, like you spoke about, they in the beginning, that they are somehow all powerful. No, they're not. They're just puppets, just, that are doing what they're supposed to do to create these roadblocks in our way, to put these lies in our way so we can get through them. And when we get to the other side, it literally, the Bible says that Satan has blinded the minds of them that believe not. The world is mind control. They all are, because they're living in this hallucinatory state where the truth really, it just, they have like this force field around them, and it cannot penetrate. But like you said, it is God. When he comes around, he picks one here, one there, and that is removed. And then when the light comes, when the enlightenment happens, it is like, Saul on the road to Damascus kind of experience. People go, wow, this is amazing. And life certainly has a meaning and a purpose.
It sure
it's
does.
Beautiful.
I mean, almost
Right.
like you're the guy that just made the touchdown and just ran through all those guys, and you got the football and you just got over the finish line and you're underneath the goalpost and you're doing that little dance like, woohoo, look at there, I just made a touchdown. Okay, I got through that gauntlet
Absolutely.
of lies, and
It's a
every single
eureka
person I
moment, you
know,
know.
it is. Every single person I know, just all they talk about is how free they feel, how rejuvenated they are. They especially at these times right now when so many people are hurting. They've lost jobs, they've lost families, they've lost their homes, they've lost all their savings. Um, the homeless population. I mean, I don't have to do the Debbie Downer thing and read the list of all the horrible things going on in the earth. And so once you wake up, it's like a brand new day, and you didn't wake up you woke up out of a nightmare. You didn't wake up out of like a really good
Absolutely.
dream. You wake up out of a really good dream. You're like, no, 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 no. I'm gonna just like turn over and I'm gonna go back into this puppy and I'm gonna finish it. Okay, but no, this one you don't want to go back into. Okay, and you want with everything you feel in your heart to get as many other people to feel that feeling as you possibly can. And that's why all of us freaking flat earthers seem like crazy people and are so hyper focused on this one issue, because it is as freeing of a thing. And this takes me to this thing I was talking about pre-show, when we were
Uh, you're cutting out there.
about this. Okay. Um, I said this is what led me to this new project I'm working on called freeandawake.net, with a new website, and been making some videos and talking about all the lies and everything. But my effort now feels like I feel like I'm being led into building some bridges within the truth community, between all of the different conspiracy theory groups. When I first got on board with Flat Earth, I came out of all those other conspiracy theory groups, and people would say, Flat Earth is a psyop. It was created by the government to get everybody to stop worrying about 9/11 and make all of us truth people and conspiracy theorists and conspiracy realists look and sound crazy because of you flat earthers. And that ticked me off. It was like, I'm not I didn't suddenly become a non 9/11 truther. I'm still that. Okay. I mean, I have the capacity for more. Sorry. But you should too. You should look into this, and you should look into how it fits in with the big deception. You can't have a big, big deception without having a global deception. It's global. How many times do we hear that word a day? Global this, globalist that, global economy, global wars, global war on terror. It goes on and on and on. Everything's global. And so it's all linked together. So this effort that I've, trying to become, a catalyst for, is to say, okay, let's look at it like this. If 9/11 is the truth, 9/11 was an inside job is the truth, and chemtrails are true, and GMOs are true, and autism from vaccines is true, and, I could go on and on and on, okay? But just say no to flat Earth. How do you cut that out? Because there's millions of people who are flat earthers, and you can probably talk about all the different religions of the earth that never stopped believing that the earth is flat. It's in their scriptures. It's in their religious books. and in their teachings that the earth is flat, right?
Right.
So this is not something new at all. The earth's always been flat. Somebody made it into a globe, but it started flat. Jason, we haven't heard you say anything. Let's get you to jump in there. And did you make notes of jumping in there and say anything to all this stuff?
Well, no, I haven't taken notes. I have listened pretty intently. Thought it was very interesting so far. Yeah, I really don't have anything to jump in on that particular point. I was thinking Paul was going to jump in.
All right, I'll come back to you in a little bit, or wave your hand when you want to say something. Paul.
Okay.
So, Paul,
well,
how do we build this bridge? Do you have any input on that as far as building the bridge between the different truth communities?
Well, personally, I just want to add to what you were saying, Ashley, is that Flat Earth actually adds a great deal to the truth movement in that it actually reveals not just the true structure of the earth itself, but also the true dynamics or the true structure, the true power structure of the control or the controlling elites on this earth. And what I mean by that is, like, before I got into this flat earth, like I've been, years, I think it started around the time of Fukushima, so it'll be 2000, about 5-6 years now. And a lot of them were focused on the economy, like you talked about the Federal Reserve and all those, manufactured crises and those sort of topics. And one thing I have come to understand over the years is that the powers that be, whether they're political leaders or corporate leaders or even religious leaders or royalty, in every nation, they are already linked and connected together. I have come to the understanding that there really is no independent powers anywhere. The USA is not run by Americans, the UK is not run by the Brits, Russia is not run by the Russians, China is not run by the Chinese, India is not run by the Indians. There are both human powers and non-human powers above them that actually control the governance of every nation, every region on the earth. And they are all very closely knit and tied together. There is a great deal of showmanship. Russia's the bad guy this week. Next week it could be China. The week after it could be Iran. North Korea. I laugh about North Korea a lot. Laugh, I mean, in a sense that it's not really a laughable situation, because North Korea, they probably don't even have any firecrackers, and yet you keep hearing these stories, how big, bad, nuclear and all that kind of stuff. And the nuclear weapons themselves may be a hoax. I'm not sure. I don't believe, I don't know what to believe anymore about all these stories. But when it comes to flat Earth, and you see the collusion that has taken place over like some centuries now, but particularly since the 40s and 50s and since the 20th century, let's say, between all the powers that be, who were supposedly even like great enemies, to hide the truth from us, to keep that globe model going, then that proves what we have always suspected, that all these powers that be, they are beholden not to their people, but to something else. This is evidence. This is the greatest evidence of it all. And therefore, the greater truth is, don't buy into it when they come around and say, Putin's the bad guy this week, so we're going to have to go and get them big bad Russians, or it's Syria, or it's this, or it's that. All the leaders of all the countries, they are all in it together. All of them are the bad guys. There is none of them that are the good guys. And this, I believe, has proved it. When the Soviet Union and the USA, that is such a classic example. These are supposed to be deadly enemies, with that Cuban Missile Crisis. Everybody has to go duck under your desk because the nuclear missiles are coming. This little desk is going to save you.
Look at the light.
I mean, look at all this tension. This is our big bad enemy. They're going to destroy us, and we have to stand up to them. And yet, behind the scenes, they are both doing like a fake space program. They're both doing these fake space missions, and both presenting the same meme, the same fake information. And to this day, they're doing it. And more people have come on board, like the Chinese and the Indians and the Japanese and the Europeans. So when in the Bible it tells us that when Jesus was tempted and Satan told him, he showed him all the kingdoms of the world, and he said, I'll give you all of these if you'll bow down and worship me. Then it proves that all these guys, they do bow down and worship the devil. They are Satanists in very literal sense of the word. Anybody that craves power and wealth in this world is a Satanist, period. And those that make it to the upper echelons, they are not even like unwittingly serving the devil. They are with full knowledge doing it. They are his full-blown servants. And therefore, if he tells them to maintain this globe model, they are going to do it. That's why NASA or the Russian space agency or the European space agency or the Chinese, they all work to give us the same fake information. This is the biggest conspiracy of them all. This is the greatest truth of them all. So you want to be in the truth movement? This is, I believe, the first topic to tackle.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the collusion, like you said, of the Antarctica Treaty. I mean, that was created and written right after World War II. The United Nations, all hanging around, working together, got their little interpreter earplugs on, and all listening to each other babble the same babble. And when you start to sort of wrap your mind around that, then you can understand the collusion and the conspiracy. I mean, they are conspiring with each other to perpetuate a lie and to put us under their control. But another thing that you have to understand is that there's only one way that could have actually happened and continue to happen over centuries, and that is there has to be an immortal being's power and plan and war games, political structures, all that. No living people can sit around and agree together on a plan that lasts for centuries without somebody going, no, my plan's better. No, my plan's better. Oh, well, let's go to war about it. And because humans just keep having wars. Do we want to have wars? Do you want to have a war? Do you want your family to live in a country that's being bombed? Heck no. Do you want to send your children off to possibly die defending some illusion? You're told that you're defending democracy, but you're actually defending a poppy field or something, or a oil rig. And so there's only one entity that could have had the plan and the glue to keep it all going. And it's, Satan has to be as close to an artificial intelligence as you can get to be able to.
I would qualify that an artificial evil intelligence.
Yes, absolutely. To be able to coordinate, manipulate, and all these little false flag things that are going. I mean, I think half of these countries are just at the mercy of this outside entity reacting constantly. That I don't think people are smart enough to pull this off. Okay, we're just not smart enough. So, when you understand that, if you say something like, well, look at the Antarctica Treaty, for example, I've got all these nations, and the only nations that are actually signatories on the Antarctica Treaty are what are commonly known as first world nations. And they're the ones
Right.
with the big militaries, okay? They
Sure.
all have a big military. And I think almost all of them, if not all of them, have nuclear weapons. That's another part of what makes you a first world country. Oh, sometimes I just kill me when I think about how retarded all this is. And yet, they're down there together doing science. Nobody can bring any military down here. We're all just going to get along. We're all up here in the space station. We're all going to get along. We all have international global weather cooperation. We all have science cooperation, on and on and on. And you look at all the little alphabet soup agencies that are all under the Department of Defense or whatever they put it under, where you just kind of question, what's going under there? and so, yet at the same time, everybody's like, la-di-da-di-da, oh, look, we landed on Mars. Oh, look, we just went past Pluto. Oh, the Jets are playing. Aren't the Kardashians on tonight? And on and on and on. And so,
right.
There's so much of an overload of crap coming into your brain from every direction. And I think about us three people sitting here talking on a little Google Hangout. It's 7 billion people in the world. And we're just yapping away, and we got a few people watching, and we're doing something. We're getting somewhere. We're trying to do something here, okay? And all the rest of the world is, and this will wipe the smile off your face. Some kids going to bed hungry in some
Right.
African country, and somebody just lost their child to a suicide bomber, and on and on. So all of that mixed all in together is this system that we're talking about. Because I can guarantee you, none of this is by normal people's choice. I don't choose it to be this way. I know you don't either. I know either one of you guys choose it to be this way. We all think of our little systems in our head. Well, if we just did this and this and this, then, wouldn't be utopia, but I bet we could solve that problem and this problem and this problem, okay, with just stopping doing this and that and the other. The billions of dollars we're sending to NASA every year. What is it this year? $19 billion is their budget? There's $7 billion.
Okay, that's probably the public budget. I'm sure they have a black budget too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And there's funding coming in from now they're privatizing all of it. Okay, what
Sure.
a brilliant idea! We can't get into the private budgets of private companies to see where the money's going or where it's coming from because it's private. That's not government request for information act stuff. Okay, and the more you privatize, the more you put in whatever in the hands of in the control of a few people's hands, and you forget about it. Kardashians are on. So that's why I'm passionate about waking people up and have been for a decade. And that's why I'm not getting any younger, and I'd kind of like to see some result before I'm gone. I already know where I'm going. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I already know where I'm going because I already got a plan, and God's in on it. And so I could just easily say, well, screw you guys. It's your problem. It's not mine. I'm going to go garden, or I'm going to read a book and just let you all go. That would be my better option. more pleasant, no stress. Just go into La La Land and read a book. But I don't choose to do that. Instead, us three are on here talking about life, the universe, and everything and trying to solve something. As if. But I know there's a reason why God turned my little button on. I didn't do that, right? So,
I would agree.
So one of the things now that I feel like I've done my year of intense research, and just to reiterate to those listening, when I use the word research, I don't mean reading blogs and watching people's videos. That is not research. Research is you personally looking up stuff, comparing stuff that you've heard, that you've been told, verifying what the person on the video said. If they said, this map is used by the USGS as the official map of the blah blah, okay? If you just suck that in and go, okay, you are just being re-indoctrinated with somebody else's information. You're not learning a thing. You're not researching anything, okay? Because this map is not the official map of the USGS. And the only way that you would know that would be if you actually went to the USGS and looked for, what is your official map? And they don't have one. There's no official map. We use all these maps for these different reasons, okay? This is just one map that we use for this particular reason. It's official for that, but it's not the official map, okay? You see what I'm saying? This is what research means. Verify. Just like you're verifying that the globe is not a globe, you're verifying the information that you're learning about flat Earth. And go outside and actually, like, go outside and look at stuff, you know? Go look at the way the sun moves. Go look at the way the moon moves. Do a little experiment for yourself. Is the moon cooler in the shadow than it is in the moonlight? For real? Or is that guy that I just watched on that video manipulating and flipping things around on me and like, that's just bogus, okay? Because we have to be our own independent Snopes.com. Each one of us. There's no flat earth Snopes.com anywhere, right? There's none. There's no such thing as the official theory of flat earth or the official map or model or logo. We don't have a logo. So this has been one of the things that's been freaking me out for the last year, is that at some point when the media starts truly punking us around and saying, oh, those flat earthers, look what they've come up with this week. Look at this cute little model with this snow globe over the top of it. This is what they believe. Okay? And then I'm going, no, I don't believe that. I'm a flat earther, but I don't believe that. So no, all flat earthers don't believe that. But yet, then the next thing you know, you walk into somebody, at a party, and they go, aren't you a flat earther? You go, oh yeah, I've been doing my research on flat earth now. So you totally, dude, you believe that we have a snow globe over the top of us? Well, no. Well, that's what I just heard on the news. B.O.B. said it, or Tila Tequila said it, and then the person on the news said that that's the official theory version of the flat earth. And so what are you telling me you're a fringe flat earther? I mean, there's such a thing. How fringe is that? Well, that's real fringe, okay? That's the fringe of the fringe. That would be me. So I've gotten to the point where none of that matters as much anymore, how it works. I figure unless God sweeps me up and the angel sends some angels down to sweep me up and have me do an Enoch fest like Enoch did, I'm never going to see it until I'm up there looking down. So, so there's that. Okay, so my next question then would be, if what do you what would you think would happen if flat Earth went mainstream? If either A, enough of us convinced enough people that they convinced enough more people, and we did it in the good old-fashioned grassroots method, that the Earth was flat, and it just sort of people got it, or worst case, the media themselves, the powers that be, announced the official flat Earth version, and here's why we've been holding it out on you for all this time, because you can't handle the truth, and because we've we've been covering up the fact that these guys, these Satan and his buddies, have been holding guns to our head all these years, and let us introduce them to you because these are your new rulers, and they made all this, okay? And then everybody goes, ah, and screaming in the streets and so on. So what do you think would happen if all of a sudden either one of those scenarios took place, but a mass amount of people realized the Earth is not a spinning ball and the space program is bogus and all the lies?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
All right. I'm not really sure what would happen, but I personally would doubt it very much that we are ever going to gain a critical mass of people that are going to wake up to the flat Earth or basically to any conspiracy in general. Okay. I don't know in your life, but in my life, most of the people that I deal with, they are quite content staying asleep. And even if we attempt to wake them up, it is like, okay, don't bother me, I'm snoozing here, get out of my way. Okay. As long as people are comfortable in their lives, you know, like they got enough to eat, drink, whatever. Generally, people don't get bothered with these sort of things. You need special type of personality, you could say. I don't know what personality type we are. Personality type I guess, inquisitive, whatever. But most people are not like that, and therefore I would not believe that it is going to happen. If it did happen, the way I understand things is, again, going back to the Bible, that whenever change happens on a corporate level, on a national level, it begins with the leaders. Okay, it doesn't begin. I do not believe in grassroots. I don't think anything ever happens grassroots. I think grassroots is a myth. That doesn't mean that people don't get woken up, like from these shows, for example, but they will be individuals. It will not be a mass awakening. So if the leaders, for some reason, decide to announce this, then knowing the true evil, some would even say like the reptilian nature of these things that are our leaders, they would have certainly some sort of nefarious agenda attached to it. So it wouldn't be for our benefit. And like you said, one of those might just be that they announced the overlords. And that's one of Arthur C. Clarke's books, Childhood's End, which they made into a TV movie series just recently. I haven't watched it. I tried watching it. It was I read the book once, and it was the most depressing book I've ever read in my life. But no, really, it was. Arthur C. Clarke was a very depressing writer, as a matter of fact. I've read a few of his books, and that was, when I was younger, and I didn't understand these things, and they had like a real heavy effect on me, like they were like a black cloud. Now
Yeah,
that I look
I
back.
think it's referred to as dystopian.
Absolutely. So anyhow, that's something that's a very good possibility that this disclosure, the alien agenda, etc., that card is going to be played, and this flat Earth certainly could fit into that scenario. But in a positive way, I would say no, it's not going to happen.
Well, I've said the same thing for quite some time now, that I actually believe that flat Earth as an awakening that supposedly began or kicked off about a year or so ago was infiltrated into the truth movement, and I still, other than a Hegelian dialectic kind of concept, meaning problem, reaction, solution, I guess if I put on my evil thinking cap, I could say, well, if you want to create a solution, then you have to create the problem and the reaction. And flat Earth is not new. There's been a flat Earth group of one kind or another forever. I mean, there's always been people who believe the Earth was flat. So does the fact that it was infiltrated into the truth movement as a psychological operation roughly a year or so ago, or maybe even 5 or 10 started, does that make the world less flat? No. Does that make me manipulated? Perhaps a little on the front end, but once I did the research and realized, well, it actually is flat. I don't really care how I got here, but that wouldn't be any different than walking into a dark room and there's a very faint light at the other end and there's an object in the middle that's casting a silhouette, and I'm going to try to figure out what is that silhouette. And then when the light gets turned on, I'm going to know, because then I'm going to see it. So the idea is that if, in fact, the Flat Earth movement was created as a psyop, doesn't change it to me at all, other than now it makes me curious and aware that there is possibly a hidden agenda coming from the back side or the back end. It puts into perspective a lot of the other conspiracies that I've thought about over the years. Why are they hiding this? Why are they not why the heck don't they talk about UFOs? There's enough people now who have seen UFOs, been abducted by UFOs, written stories, made movies, have home movies. Something's happening. So the government actually has a what do you call those? When you get a little think tank committee room together and talk about it and do all the investigation and come out the other end with, well, we've determined that the people who see UFOs yep, it's weather balloons, or yep, it's whatever other fakery they come up with. And you're like, really? You're going to go there? You're going to keep going there? And so, but how many years have we been seeing UFOs? Well, first of all, it goes all the way back to like Sumerians were carving on rocks things that look like UFOs. So these things have been around for as long as humans have been carving on rocks. Okay. But in my lifetime, there's been a growth of UFOs. So, okay, are we getting to a critical mass with the UFO thing? Can they not hide them anymore? Are they getting impatient, these UFOs, these fallen angels, demons, devils, critters that can come through the wall, whatever they are, from out of the ocean, wherever they're coming from, all those places? Are they saying, okay, you guys, tick tock, we got about another 2 years before we're coming out, okay, and we're not going to hide anymore, and we're just going to like start landing in the streets, and people are going and run down the street and freak out. And so it's up to you guys to figure out a way to put it out there. I don't know. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me if I was going to do that. If I had a gun to my head, saying, the president of all the large countries, the signatories to Antarctica Treaty, and of course, people don't understand there's an Arctic Treaty kind of thing too, right? They don't get it that you can't fly over the Arctic. You can't go there. So something's happening there. I mean, even Transformers makes movies about the, great big giant things that are mechanical that live in the Arctic and are controlling our leaders. So how important is flat Earth then? Not quite as much as then now. That's a bigger thing. I mean, if we've had aliens around here forever, okay, and some people have known about it and they haven't been telling us because they hang out with them and meet them and stuff, have meetings underground, whatever's going on. Is that a possibility? What does the Bible say about that, Paul? There's nothing written in there about aliens.
I'll give you my perspective on this so-called psyop of the flat Earth. Again, like we try and attribute all these reasons either to the human agencies or just to the evil entities, what the Bible called devils, Satan. But in the Bible, one of the scriptures, it tells us, or some of the scriptures, that there is nothing secret that shall not be revealed. As we approach the times of the end, and one of my fields of study has been biblical prophecy, and yes, certainly, like all the advent of technology and all these things, they're pointing towards that we're getting closer to that time which the Bible identifies as the end of the world. And again, like that does not say the end of the earth, it means the end of the world, which means a system, essentially including a loss of a great number of life on earth is going to happen, but not all life. All humans are not going to die off in that end times. So we're getting closer to that. But I believe simultaneously as the closer it gets, the more of the truths about the world that we live in are going to be revealed. Okay. And it is to put people in a position where they have to make a choice, where the truth has been put in front of them, and therefore they have to choose to believe it or not to believe it. It's a test. Okay. So in addition to the flat earth, I'm sure there are going to be other subjects over the next whatever years, decades, that is going to be revealed that we should know, because they'll be as obvious truths as the flat earth is to us today. But I'm sure there are a lot of things that are still hidden from us. So this revelation of the flat earth, even if it has been done through the agency of they, quote unquote they, it may not be something that's voluntary on their part, because they are not in control of anything. They themselves are controlled, as is Satan. So if he's ordered to do it by God, there's no way. Like in the case of Job, for example, God gave him authority over Job to test Job, and Satan could do certain things, but they were authorized by God. So in these things too, I believe this revelation, like you said, it doesn't matter which agency it came from, you came to understand it, now you believe it to be the truth, and who cares, whether it was the CIA that released it, or the NSA, or any other kind of, alphabet soup agency, or who's working for who. In the end, it doesn't really matter, because we can now do our own research, and we can confirm the truth of these things we are learning, and moreover, we can actually begin to work together to formulate a proper model and to add to the understanding of the subject that has already been revealed, and be prepared that there's going to be more truths that are coming our way that we should be ready to accept and examine.
I agree with that, and I add to that, there is, in my belief, there is a universal law of free will that we all have to live under. And we, as humans, have been given free will to choose not just what to believe, and not just whether to go left or right at this intersection, or what our worldview is. Our free will is about whether we're going to choose to believe in God, the Creator. This is, again, my opinion. And that we are created by God, and that we are children of God, and that we have a connection to God, and that this is, we don't know what the plan was. We don't know why, we were planted down here in the first place, and we don't know what our purpose, we don't even know what our purpose is. I mean, we kind of do, but we really don't, okay? We don't know what God's purpose for us is. And so they can't trick us out of our connection to God. That's the universal law of free will, in my opinion. So when it comes down to these kinds of issues, like whether or not you believe in the flat earth, whether or not you believe in, the system is a conspiracy, any of it, you're making your own choice based on your discernment, your wisdom, your, life's experiences, what your gut tells you, what your heart tells you, what your mind tells you, your logic tells you. And you're going to have to make choices on what you believe. And as time goes by, every time you get new input, you have to change your belief system, because you can't hold on to a paradox for very long. If flat and round just can't both be, right? So once you kick out the ball and you believe in the flat, well, now you naturally are going to have to understand that in itself is another system. It's another belief system. It's a choice you're making, okay? And just like the guy in the Matrix that says to, I want to go back. I want to go back in. And says to the agents, give me the blue pill again, or whatever it is. I think that was just sort of a little quirky part of of that movie that many people can emotionally decide to check out and not be a part of the truth movement, and so on and so, because it becomes just too stressful or too intense or too much information, too many arguments with people online, flying fingers and arguing, and Facebook, whatever. And so they just decide, I'm done. I just am gonna get offline, and I'm gonna get off grid and check out, and so on. So with this whole waking up thing, okay, waking up is a finality. If you can go back, you never really fully woke up to begin with. That's my opinion again, okay? Because once you wake up, there's no more sleep sheeple thing. It can't be. Now, you may not wake up fully about everything and understand everything. Then, there's going to be a little sheeple blood left running in your veins for, quite some time. But at the end of the day, it is an addiction, the truth. You can't stop at just knowing some truth, because every time you turn around, you're going to see another thing, and you go, oh, you know what? That makes sense with that other thing I know. So whether it was a psyop, whether there's another plan getting ready to happen, whether it's just another page in a 50-year plan, like other plans we've seen coming to fruition, so be it. But to argue to the death with people, people get mad. You stupid flat earthers, I can't believe you're so ignorant. You flat tards, and every other kind of thing they scream at you. Paul, you're so lucky you're not on Facebook. You have a Facebook account, I think you said, but you don't do social media like that.
No, I don't.
Don't go there, because it's killer. It really is. There's times when you just have to turn it off and go, okay, that's enough internet for today, because I'm gonna be unladylike in about 5 minutes. Okay, so why go through this exercise then? If it's a psyop, if there's another control grid going, is it just for personal curiosity that you would continue to do it, or is it?
I believe truth has a. Sorry.
Or is it part of the plan?
Well, the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. Okay. We live like people like in your country, in Canada, Western Europe, etc. People live in wealthy countries where we have an abundance of material things. There's no shortage of it. we are going to be held to a higher standard. Okay. In the end, there has to be a leveling out. And I just came back from India, and some places where you go, it's the most malnourished country in the world. Okay? And you see people that literally are, sticks and bones. That's what they are. They're walking like skeletons almost. So how do we justify it that over here we live better than the kings of old, and our life is spent on what? Watching Sunday football on Sundays, going to the bars on Saturday, doing basically living this life of decadence. Okay. So when we are presented with truths, the responsibility that is required is to study and to make sense out of our lives. And if we don't do that, there is going to be a cost that is going to be associated with it. Therefore, as the world gets darker, those who have eyes to see, they will see more light. That's just the way it is. Okay. So we can understand that these lies are going to also get bigger, as a matter of fact, but so will our faculty of discerning and spotting the lie from afar off. In the past, it took a long time and effort, but I think that quickening or the sharpening of our senses, you could literally say, is going to get more acute as the days get darker. So these things are not just for interest or curiosity. Okay, I don't have the time, or the subject is too vast perhaps to get into what our responsibility here is as human beings. Okay, it is not just all fun and games. Life is serious business, and we have to take it seriously. Okay, so for those people who think that nothing really matters, just live your life, have a good time, that's what we're here for, fine. You can have your good time. But in the end, it is going to cost you. And that's what we have to keep in mind.
I agree with that. I mean, there's a yin and yang to everything, right? And I have a good sense of humor. I'm pretty lighthearted. I try to see the positive and the negative. A lot of times I'm the one who, if you come to me and say, woe is me, in 5 minutes, I'll snap you out of it. So there is a lot to be said for having a positive life. And I do have friends who are absolutely sunk to the lowest lows with being online and seeing all the horrible things going on in the earth and thinking about, oh my God, if I do this, before you know it, I'm going to be picked up and I'm going to be put in a FEMA camp. Okay. And I'm the one who'll say, well, hey, here you go. Hi, from FEMA Camp Zone 4. Do you know what your zone is? What do you mean? Well, I mean, there's zones across the United States for FEMA camps. Do you know what zone you live in? Well, no. Well, then what are you worried about going to a FEMA camp for if you don't even know what zone you live in? Okay? That's how you got your priorities a little screwed up here. And that's how this fear-mongering stuff has just warped your whole life. I mean, you're just one miserable soul walking around. You need to get off that. That's not happening to you. There's a big difference between fear and danger. Fear is in your mind. Danger is an elephant charging at you, okay? That's danger. That's imminent. You got to either make a decision to run or something, okay? But all this fear that they're using on you is wrecking your existence. And so many of the people that are in the conspiracy movement, they feel, and the truth movement, they feel like if they can't actually see results from all of their research, if they can't actually change the world as benefit all the time they've invested, then you can hear the game show sound, wah, 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 wah. You know, my life's ruined. Everything's horrible and terrible. No, it's not. You could sit around and harp on every horrible, terrible thing there is. But you know what? For every horrible, terrible thing you can come up with, I can come up with a positive thing. I can come up with something good. And so, am I learning about all of these things that are going on in the world, the system, to change it? Well, if I can, I will, and I'm going to try. But am I going to be devastated and want to shoot myself if I don't or I can't? No. It doesn't work like that, okay? So I just want to be, what's the scripture? Don't be of the world, don't be in the world, be of the, what is?
We are in the world, we are not of the world.
Of the world, okay. Of the world, as your description
we are not
was.
of the world. We are in the world, but we are not of the world.
Of the world, okay. So when I'm not of this mess. I happen to live here and I can't escape, whether there's a snow globe over the top or not, or whether it's a giant rectangular refrigerator box and I'm an ant. I can't get out of here until it's time to go. And so I'm going to try to make the best of it that I can. Just like you went to India and you saw people starving. And, I know there were many thoughts that probably crossed your mind that said, man, I suck. I got a nice place to live. I have a car. I live in and I should just give them everything I have to feed them. But it doesn't work that way either. That's not your calling. That's not, perhaps. I mean, I've seen the videos of the guys that go out and feed people and wash their feet and try to help them day after day after day. That's their calling. That's what they are going to do. So mine, I feel, is to try to get people out of the world, out of this system. Whether it's mentally and emotionally, whether it's literally physically out of it. I feel like that's one of the things I should be doing, and so that's what I'm trying to do with this whole everything I do every day. So, all right, you guys, we're coming up on 2 hours. It's been great. I've really enjoyed the conversation, Paul, and I hope you have. And
yes, certainly, absolutely.
Jason, I'm going to hear from you, all your thoughts afterward or whatever. Thank you for also joining in. And it's just nice to have your face to watch your thoughts and emotions changing while I'm watching you on camera, to know that this is interesting or this is not. It's kind of a good sounding board. So hopefully we can do this again sometime. And Paul, I appreciate very much your time. I hope that whatever your calling is and your research, where your research takes you, and how God uses you is a good journey. And same with you, Jason. And for those of you that are listening, thank you so much, because we do this for you. I've had a great time. I would have done it whether you were listening or not. But thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Paul, do you have anything you want to say in closing?
Yes, well, thank you very much for inviting me. I really enjoyed being on your program. I just want to add to basically finish out by saying, like what you were talking about, these people that get paranoid and fear about FEMA camps and everything else. Personally, now I have come to a place where I realize, because I do believe, like I said, in the Bible and in Bible prophecy, and I do understand that peace is not going to come until the Prince of Peace returns. And before we get to that place, this world has to go through a very, very hard and bad and dark time like the world has never seen before. Okay? Keeping that in mind, it is my wish to see the world get worse, but for people to get better. Okay? So we are all working on ourselves to understand and to be better and to hope for the life that lies beyond mortal coil here. Okay, we are only here for a few days, but there's something greater that awaits if we will believe it. That's what I want, but I also want to know. I also know that unless we go through those dark times, we are not coming out to the other side, which is literally paradise. So that's what I think about those things that are coming.
Awesome.
If they come and I die, so what? You know, we're going to die anyway, so may as well go out blazing, you know, tell everybody that you can, speak the truth with boldness, and, you know.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Whatever's going to happen will happen.
Whatever's going to be will be. Okay, sarah, sarah.
Yes. Right.
So, okay, you guys, we'll see you next time, and thank you. This is Lori signing off from Free Our Flat Earth, Episode 7. Bye.